Hello, everyone. It is really nice to be back up here. Every time I leave a Creative Mornings event, I leave better than I arrived. So I hope to delight you all and inspire some reflection in you today. When I reflect on my creativity, thinking about my paths towards becoming a filmmaker, it started early. There are clear patterns and building blocks that made up my childhood and my life. And it's interesting to see how key moments led me to where I am today. Okay, so one of my favorite parts about myself is my body's love for music. It's something that's always been there. It's not really something that I'm seeking, but something that my mind, my body, and my subconscious, they've always embraced. Like from the moment I wake up until I go to sleep, there's a song or a melody or even just some lyrics in my head. Sometimes it's the same song for days, like this obsession. And other times I just take a moment to be still and kind of see what comes to me. But it just brings me a lot of joy. I feel like this love is part nature, part nurture. My dad is the one who really nurtured a passion for music within me. This was us at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And when I was little, we spent a lot of time driving. And it was through those drives that I learned the entire discography of the Beatles, The Who, and pretty much every classic rock song on the radio. My dad was a steering wheel drummer, like driving and just like it's definitely a trait that I've picked up on. To avoid missing the end of a great song, he would always drive around the block, or we would just sit and wait in the driveway for that final cymbal crash. I have a very distinct memory of sitting in the driveway, in the back seat of the car. I was 7 years old and had 2 little figurines. We were listening to the legendary classic rock band Grand Funk Railroad. The song was My Captain. And it has this long outro that just over and over goes, I'm getting closer to my home. And to me, this is just this peaceful, calm memory that I have. It's this perfect memory. And now music was always key for my grandmother, too, who was one of 7 children growing up in the 1930s. She and her siblings, they created a family band and would perform for their neighbors. She too loved music. She would often ask me to sing or to play my violin, but I was too nervous. My anxiety would take over as a kid, and so I never sang for her. But I have tried to put myself out there more recently. Y'all may know that there are a lot of really great choirs in the area. So this past year, I decided to audition. My audition was at 7:30 p.m., and I went there, and with all of my heart, I sang My Country 'Tis of Thee. I did my scales, and I did my sight reading, which admittedly was not great. I swear, at 7 a.m. the next morning, I had a rejection email waiting for me. Which was come on, you haven't even had your coffee yet. This must have been something that was keeping you up at night, that you just had to say, no, you are not in our choir. So reflecting on my life, there are definitely some anxieties and some insecurities that have pushed me behind the scenes, where I was a little more comfortable. So as a kid, I loved to act. And it was in middle school when I took a tour of our auditorium, and I got to control a big, giant spotlight. It was a giant, manual one that you point at the actors, and I just thought this was so cool. That got me into productions, and I began being behind the stage, learning roles beyond acting. When I went off to college at Elon University, I got my hands on a camera, and I started creating music videos nonstop. Y'all recognize Flavor Flav? So this is a clip that I got at the first Hopscotch. I was on the video crew, and I happened to be in the Sheridan lobby, right as he walked out of the elevator. So I just ran up to him and was like, Flavor Flav, give us a shout out. And he did, and it was so cool. So I've been on the Hopscotch video crew since the first year. It's been a dream for me as a music lover. And eventually, after college, I helped start a TV series called Sound Situations. This was for Raleigh Public Access, and it was just a small team of us. We filmed interviews and performances with local bands and edited them into 4 30-minute episodes. Here is Shauna Tucker, a former CreativeMornings speaker and one of the musicians we filmed. We really specialized in takeaway shows, which were kind of like one-off performances. So this is an example of that. Shauna was in her backyard, in her garden, and it was lovely, as you can see. But the audio was crap because there were bugs everywhere, and it was just this like swarming cicada sound. But it was public access, and we were doing our best. But telling the stories of musicians really became a passion of mine. Blending instruments with words and sounds, to me, like it transports our minds and our souls. I don't know about y'all, this may be the right crowd to tell, but I've always been able to see music. Like sometimes it's colors, like dancing or swirling around my vision. Other times I'm picturing instruments being played, or often like entire scenes will be playing out before me. It wasn't until I was about 17 that I asked my mom if she also saw music videos in her mind. I think she thought I was on drugs. She looked at me a little strange and said, no, I do not. So reflecting on these memories and these patterns, I realized that they formed the building blocks of my creative life, and fortunately enough, my career. So I work at Myriad. It's a creative agency for all things video, located here in Raleigh. I've been working there for over a decade, and I manage the original content program. So this is where we meld storytelling with values and our passions to create films, series, and video shorts. These films are called Myriad Originals. And as an overall program, our team focuses on progressive stories about human rights, from LGBTQ equality, immigration, and regenerative agriculture. But window music, now this is really like my baby. Window music is an original series out of Myriad that has grown into a platform for musicians. I started it with Jed Gant. He's the brand director of Myriad, another CreativeMornings speaker. And our vision for this was a YouTube series a la Tiny Desk, seeking to find the sounds of North Carolina. So we do a variety of performances, short documentary films with artists. The program has featured Ben Folds, American Aquarium, the indie band Wednesday, and we've even partnered with Hopscotch and WUNC Music for the last few years. The program has grown, and we're trying to level up the storytelling sophistication. So for the last 2 years, I've been co-directing a documentary with Jed called The Great Cover-Up. So who knows about The Great Cover-Up at King's? That's like half of you, that's awesome. It is a super fun annual event where local musicians form cover bands, from old school throwbacks to the latest pop stars. People come together for charity, community, and creativity. The project has been like so fun. Again, a really tiny crew. We've been following Paul Seiler, who's the MC, the host, and the organizer of the event. We also followed a local singer named Shelly, who may or may not be in the audience right now. She's performed 12 times, I believe, at the Great Cover-Up. And I think her story is so cool because she had never performed on stage before being at the Great Cover-Up. I believe she had been like in a church choir, but really like her first time being on stage was at that event, to a sold-out crowd, no less. We filmed interviews, multiple events. We've been collecting archival footage from the community. This doc has support of the Southern Documentary Fund, which is really something I'm proud of. And in some big news from earlier in the week, PBS NC just picked up our project too. Yeah. So that means we have to finish it. We just started post-production, but we're expecting it to be airing next summer on PBS. So I'm very excited. So all of these myriad originals, these projects are key in how I've built my career so far. They reflect my values, providing a platform for music, showcasing joy within a community, and advocating for human rights. And it's been a privilege to make this my career, and just so enjoyable to truly see myself, like even as a kid, in the work that I'm making now. So I have young kids, like 5 and 3, and I often analyze their personalities and their passions, just kind of wondering what parts will stick. Because it really seems like people do show their true selves when they're kids. So one action item for you all today, I'd like you to reflect on your creative moments and your creative memories from when you were a kid. Whether it's a creative medium that's been consistent, or a mentor, a muse that stuck with you, or just a topic that's simply been inspiring. What are your threads, and what are your creative building blocks? But to go a step deeper, like revisit your old memories and take yourself out as the main character. So like what was going on in the background of your memories? What were others worried about? And what was on their mind? Like thinking about the story I told earlier about my dad and Grand Funk Railroad, I was 7, but my dad was the age that I am now. And he worked really hard throughout his life, but he was constantly part of downsizings within his career. And looking back, like my parents pinched pennies, but I never knew. And thinking about that moment in the car, like for my dad, like it was probably the best part of his day. And I imagine that when he got lost in music with me, like sitting in the driveway, that was his creative flow. And it's just this whole new perspective for me. So turning memories over and over, like that has great value, especially in terms of creating art. But it does keep the idea of reflection in the past. So thinking about reflection in the current tense, the present, like now that can be intimidating. The idea of confronting your reflection and being honest enough to recognize your values, your privilege, and the stories that you tell yourself. Like, does the way that you live and grow your career, does that accurately reflect who you are and what you really want? Just recognizing those things in yourself is hard, and it requires work. And you may not like the things you see. As the great Freddie Mercury once said in Somebody to Love, take a look at yourself in the mirror and cry, oh yeah. Like, take a look at yourself in the mirror and cry. Like, Freddie gets it. But you can change your reflection. You can change your reflection by changing how you live, your patterns, your habits, and your choices. Easy, though, right? So how do you do this? Like, I like to do this through journaling. Who else journals? Anyone? Okay, this is awesome, a lot of you. So I think journaling is this incredible tool to uncover your subconscious. I started doing it in 4th grade when my teacher, Mrs. Harriet, taught us to do thought ramblings. We'd go on outdoor field trips, and she would drop each one of us off in a quiet, private place, and we would just journal for 20 minutes. Like nothing was due or had to be read out loud. It was simply a way to get our thoughts out and observe the world and ourselves. So it can be a tool for reflection because it brings out passions, emotions, and motivations laying just below the surface. For y'all that do, have you ever had that moment where you're journaling and then your handwriting changes? Like you're going from normal letters to these like giant, big, bold letters. For me, that's when I am like definitely in my flow and my subconscious seems to be at work. So it's important that you also spend time reflecting on those old entries. I like to use my journals as data and like looking for patterns, because you may find a source of inspiration or a new perspective, or just your subconscious bringing an issue to the front. So maybe instead of journaling, your reflection takes place by looking at your past artwork, thinking about how it's evolved, what's consistent, and what's changed. But regardless, be sure to use reflection to recognize how far you've come. Appreciate your growth. Like as a kid, I was too scared to sing for my grandma. Like that's kind of sad. But here I am, like I just sang for you, like 2 lines. That's awesome. So I just hope you all will take some time to reflect, to look back, and to look ahead, and to confront your reflections and stay true to yourself. Because one day, the patterns of your creativity will become crystal clear, even if they're all a blur right now. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Keep it going, Raleigh.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
This is very special. Thank you for saying yes and being open to coming and speaking on this very special day. We have time for Q&A, so let's get it kicked off. Here you go.
Oh, thank you, Joel. Thank you, Alysse.
Yeah.
With the theme of reflection, I'm curious if you could reflect on your impression on generative AI tools and,
Okay.
people.
Like with, okay.
Say, and on how it affects, you think it affects creativity, the creative process, and how creative professionals might need to adapt. For example, let's take the music. Suno, Udio, I'm now seeing legitimate artists posting on how to put their original work on there and use it to augment it and come back and add lyrics. On the other end, there's those who say, hey, I recognize my stuff in there. And kind of cheapening what someone does to, well, how can I make a living doing it? So I await your thoughts.
Yeah, that was not the question I was expecting. But yeah, I mean, as a video professional, like it's scary to see some of these these AI tools. It's a conversation that we're wrestling with at Myriad. There's definitely like half of the team that's kind of excited and sees potential, and then there's the other half that's like clinging to our like millimeter, our 35 millimeter film, and I think we like have to adapt. I think like that technology is coming. I think there's going to be younger folks and older folks that are like learning those tools and are going to be able to do things faster and cheaper. Even if it kind of cuts creative corners. And that's unfortunate. It's scary. I like to use like AI in ways that help support like my work, but not like do it for me. So I like to use it in terms of like brainstorming, coming up with like titles, and just kind of getting different like ideas there. But I haven't really played with it much in my video production. I need to. I think I need to learn it more, but I'd be curious to see like what others are doing with it.
Hi. Thanks so much for your talk. It's really great. And I enjoyed your singing as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I had a question about journaling. So I've never used it in like a creative avenue before, so I find that really interesting. It's always been more of an emotional thing to me, like if I have some sort of emotional or social problem, more of a diary probably.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was just wondering if you had any tips about how to use it for more of that creative output.
Yeah.
Love to hear your thoughts.
Good question. Yeah, mine definitely started with the like emotional and just getting stuff out. And I think it's okay for it to like start that way because sometimes you just need to like clear your brain. But I like the idea of giving yourself like prompts or giving yourself almost like a mission in kind of your reflection. So one thing you could do is like set a timer or just think like, okay, I'm gonna take Alysse's prompt and I'm gonna like go back to my childhood and think about some of those memories. And maybe just starting by writing out some of the memories. Yeah, I know like on Reddit, there's a group that does like short story prompts and it's just kind of like 5-minute stories and it's just the idea of trying something. So I think, just finding a prompt, whether that's something from your personal life or something a prompt you can find on the internet or something. I think just writing and keeping yourself in that flow with the pen to paper is like what's important.
Speaking of AI, you can just ask ChatGPT to give you a creative
Yeah.
prompt. And it'd probably be pretty good.
Thank you so much. One of the things that I love about Creative Mornings is the opportunity for collaboration. Obviously, that's why we're all here. I come out of the nonprofit theater world, so I'm curious, in your work documenting these music folks, do you work with the State Arts Council? Do you work with Music Makers Foundation, like these nonprofits?
Yeah.
How is that collaboration? Is that something that's on the radar?
I love that question. We definitely have been collaborating with groups over time. I remember like Come Here and See was a group early on when we got started. Yeah, I think we need to do more of that. I love it. We should connect. Yeah, because I mean, with with our work, we're all about finding partnerships. For some of our documentaries, like the ones around sustainable agriculture, like that one has just been a little more obvious for us to think about like nonprofit partners. But I think in the music space, yeah, it's easy to kind of just think of the artist. Yeah, maybe let's connect.
Great talk. Congrats on getting picked up by PBS.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering with journaling, because I also journal, how would you reflect on your, like, do you journal about your career? Is it something that, you said you've been doing it for like 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how do you reflect on your career journey? Because I guess when you say being on PBS is like you made it.
Yeah, I mean, it is like this week has had a lot of like really good stuff happen for the career and for originals. Like we had that PBS news on one of our other films. They just had a screening in New York, and a clip got aired at the Clinton Foundation at their big summit, which is like mind blowing. There you go. And we also had like a fundraising event for the Great Cover Up earlier this week, where we raised, I think, like $7,000. So, you know, nothing crazy, but, you know, enough that we'll be able to pay an editor, which is, you know. What was your question?
Reflecting on your career.
Oh, yeah. So I think, like, for me, that's just it's something that kind of naturally comes out. Like, hearing y'all kind of ask, like, what do I journal about is making me realize, like, I journal about, like, everything. And to me, it's all pretty fluid of, like, what's going on in my personal life, what's going on in my work life. It all kind of, like, melds together. But thinking about my career specifically, like, I've been working on these Myriad Original stuff for probably, like, 6 years. And it started with us, like, on zero budget, making like YouTube series, like kind of in our production closet area, and has now grown to really like a feature documentary that's airing on things. So I don't think like we've made it, but I am like proud of how far we've come. I'm proud that like our work has gotten better and better over the years, that more people are seeing it, that we're getting like higher caliber or like more well-known like partners and musicians and things like that. But there's still a way to go. It's hard to like know when you've like made it, you know? Because to me it's like, oh well, we still have Netflix, we still have HBO. It'd be nice to raise more than like $7,000 for our documentary. So yeah, there's still ways to go, but it does, I think like focusing on the career and seeing how far I've come, like it's nice to reflect and like feel good about the work that we've done.
Hey, Alysse.
Oh, hey.
So I want to confirm, we talked a little bit before about the emotion of telling a story. I want to tell you that I did get teary-eyed and picked up. Talking about dads and daughters and driving around in songs, right? Spot on. Great job. I want to talk about a great cover.
Yes.
I think this is something that Raleigh should be really proud of. It's amazing that you guys are telling the story. I want to ask about funding and how you are doing this incredible thing that should end up on screens everywhere around the world, and tell the story of Raleigh and the creativity that happens here. I want to hear about the creative ways that you're funding this film, where you guys are today, and where you need to go, and how we can help.
Love that. Thank you, Danny. So let's see. The Great Cover Up doc started because a bunch of us at Myriad would go to this event and just have like the best time. And it was just so positive. And you know, like there's been so much like BS going on in the world lately that like we just wanted to tell a positive, fun story that people could kind of like get lost in and forget about everything else. So we started with zero funding. I'd say the first like year and a half. It's been I'll say funded through Myriad, but we haven't been spending any money. It's been us like grabbing the camera, going out to the shows, setting up interviews, and just kind of doing everything in-house. But that's tough for Myriad because they're just like funding all this work, and so a big goal is to get money and get paid for these projects and be able to pay our collaborators. So creative funding ways that we're doing, we've been doing we have like a nonprofit submission page through the Southern Documentary Fund. So I'd say we've kind of done like a soft GoFundMe sort of thing. But it's tough to kind of ask the participants of the Great Cover Up and like the fans to donate money. And we feel like you guys just showing up and being there, you're already giving money to the charities. So it's been tricky to kind of like figure out who to be asking for funding. But yes, earlier in the week, we did have this like happy hour event where we did a silent auction and had like a raffle. So we raised some money there. Looking forward, that is a great question. I think we're gonna be open to different funding sources and finding different partners. If you Google the Great Cover Up, you can find a donation link in case everyone is feeling generous. But yeah, I think we will be doing a premiere screening at the Rialto early next year. So we'll probably charge tickets to that and maybe have like a special VIP ticket or something. We're just trying to be creative and give people a good time in exchange for their support.
Thank you so much for sharing, but also for singing not once but twice. I'm a choir conductor, and a passion of mine, having taught in the middle high school community and religious areas, is how we create more approachable opportunities for people to collectively sing. So my question to you, and we had this going before the pandemic, before it was quite frankly deadly to sing around other people. Yeah. Is to get that going. A community choir, will you come to a rehearsal?
Thank you, sure. Yeah, I will say at that audition, like when I was sitting in the lobby, there was definitely like, there was someone singing like before me that was obviously like classically trained, like very, very talented. So I had like a little sign right there. Yeah, maybe there's like a B choir or like the JV like team that would be a good fit for me. Yeah.
With the arts, so many times we see, like, especially when we get to our ages, it's like high level, and oh, I could never do that. I could never do a documentary like this. But what's the point of entry when we want to learn something new? Mm-hmm. And when we want to explore, and maybe it does take us to that level, or maybe it's something that's just fun. So let me be clear, when I said rehearsal, I'm enjoying the choir. I love it. I would love for you to be a part, whether it's a rehearsal or a choir, but no matter where your point of entry is, that's all so valuable.
Oh, I think that's awesome. I will say I've always noticed there's a orchestra, like I do play violin. There's an orchestra called it's called R-Toot, the really terrible orchestra of the triangle. So I've always like had that one on my radar, and just like that, they're just there to have fun, like to show up for practice like on a Tuesday night and like make some friends. And so I think like that type of space is really valuable. Like I love like being creative with my kids, and just because like we'll do painting, we'll do blocks, art, and it's just so, we just throw it away after, or it just like goes into a bin, and it's just so nice to do things that don't have like these high creative expectations, just like doing things to be creative and like to feel good. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, I love that. There's no barrier to entry in creative projects, I believe. But you mentioned that the great cover-up is being wanted to do with all the bullshit going on in the world. Why do you think telling stories like the great cover-up, despite it not being like some deep human interest story, is important?
That's a good question. I think for the Great Cover-Up specifically, it was just so obvious that this event was bringing joy to people. The line always like wraps around the block every single night, like all night for people to get in. Like being backstage, you just see all the artists like giggling to each other, you know, like putting on their silly wigs and putting on their makeups. Like people are just like having fun. So to me, it just seemed really natural to like want to capture that. Yeah, so I think especially with music, artists have so many different emotions that they're going through the songs, you know, like with the window music piece, sometimes the musicians are talking about like really intense things or like racial justice or other times they're talking about like frolicking through the woods. So I like that the window music platform can be open for kind of any type of emotion. But I do think sometimes, like, I love reality TV and just like crappy TV shows, and like sometimes I just want to like tune out and have something positive that I can just like enjoy. And so I hope that this documentary will like just bring people joy and like allow people to have a little fun.
Hi, you kind of mentioned this already, but I'm curious with your kids, knowing what you know about your memories from when you were a child, how do you now, or what would you like to do to encourage that reflective attitude with your own children?
I love that. I remember like when the kids were little, I wanted them to be like surrounded by music. So that was really important to me that we always had like music playing or instruments or things like that. The idea of reflection is a good aspect though, because like they're still so young that like I feel like we're in the present with them and their minds. But maybe it's like the idea of like holding on to those old like artwork pieces and going back and showing them like, hey, you did this when you were younger. Like, look how far you've grown with your pictures. I think that could be a good way, just kind of celebrating like the old artwork that they've done. My kids love to look at pictures, and like we always do a photo book at the end of the year. So just kind of looking through memories, and yeah, maybe I think a thing could be like encouraging my kids to talk to their grandparents and like ask them questions and not just like be in the present moment and asked to watch like Kirby and Mario on YouTube, but to really like ask them questions and talk about like what they like to do when they were kids. Like, I think I will encourage them to do that.
Any other questions?
Okay, so I know storytelling comes with like a lot of unexpected things that may kind of derail or interrupt your anticipated kind of lens that you're telling the story through. I was wondering if you could tell us about maybe an incident or an encounter to where you were filming or just something went astray from like the storyline that you were intending to tell.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that happens all the time. Like, I'd say there's always like, from little things to big things, there's always like stuff that happens. One that like kind of stinks is that we worked with this woman and kind of put together, we've put together a doc to like tell her story. And we worked with her for probably over a year and had built like a really strong connection. We had put together this kind of like 20-minute, kind of like rough cut documentary that our team was like so proud of. I mean, it really told her story. It was like, it made you feel something. But then like when we showed her, you could tell that she was not comfortable with the story. And it didn't seem like it was a story. It seemed like we were telling this story that she like hadn't gotten to yet. Like she needed a few more like therapy sessions to kind of like get there. And so I think that was tough that like we didn't, I don't know if it was an issue of like she needed to be in the edit room with us to really like be putting that story together, or if like we were able to kind of see something that that she didn't. But now that story is just kind of sitting like on a hard drive, and we still have the relationship with her and still are like working with her, but yeah, that sucks. Like we have that piece. So that was definitely like a learning lesson of like, okay, how do we like tell a true story while making our protagonist like feel comfortable. Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line because it's like we want to be the filmmakers. We see this story, but we also don't want to be like jerks and just like put it out there and say like, sorry, you signed the release form. So that one was tough. Something that was like a little lighter. We started window music right before COVID, and we had like big plans to do it as like the tiny desk and have all these different episodes. And we did 2, and then COVID hit. And we were like, well, crap, like now we can't do this. So there was about a 2-year break before we did our 3rd episode. And we ended up filming at the poorhouse, everyone was masked, and we were able to do another 2 episodes there. So that one was just like hard because we just had to wait so long. And it was like, I really believe in this and I want it to continue. So I just feel good that we kept it going. We like kept it alive, just like Creative Mornings, like the chapter stayed alive during COVID, and that was just something that I'm very proud of.
I thought your story was amazing, and it just really shows, just the way you put this story together, I think just shows how skilled you are at telling stories and love hearing yours. On this idea of reflection, I think just what you said about the woman, like you kind of saw things that maybe she didn't see or couldn't reflect on for herself. When we reflect alone, we only can see what we can see or think about, but how have you found ways to like bring other people into your reflection of yourself, or maybe even like reflected with a team together? How does that work?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like personally, like in just like a lot of conversations, like with your friends and your family, like you are just kind of reflecting or you're telling stories. So I could see like just sitting around like a dinner table, and like telling stories and talking about like growth is definitely one thing. One thing I'd like to do more with just like my work in like my coworkers is like sit down and kind of reflect on how far we've come, because a lot of the Myriad team has been there for this like same amount of time that I have. So like we've really seen each other grow, like in not only our skills but like our personal life. Like I remember like a coworker's baby coming in and like introducing the baby, and now that baby is 10, and it's like, oh my god. But yeah, I think like our work has just come a long way, and whether it's like window music or just looking at Myriad originals, like I think that's really important, and that aspect of like celebrating, using reflection to appreciate like where you are now is key. So yeah, maybe I'll implement that like coming up.
All right, I get the last question.
Okay.
Now that you're a speaker too, are we still gonna see you every month at Creative Mornings or what?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and now my son's drop-off is at like 8:15 instead of 9 o'clock, so now I can actually be here for coffee. Like, yeah, life is good.
We are blessed to have you as a former host. Thank you for speaking with us this morning. Congratulations to this community for the award that we've been recognized, standing on shoulders of folks like Alysse and all of you. It's a really phenomenal moment. This is about reflection. It was just a real honor to like do the work, to look back on ourselves as an organization, to be super, super proud of where we are. Thank you, Alysse, for being part of that story. Taylor, Matt, Jonathan, Vishali, and all of you and all of our volunteers. Just super, super grateful. We received the award in a week and a half. Anybody get tickets to the Raleigh Medal of Art ceremony? Everyone's like, yeah, you said I'm the wrong way. If there are more tickets that become available, we'll let you know. We're gonna keep partying every month, like we do. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming out this fall. There's more chocolates outside. There's more slingshot outside. Thank you all. We'll be back at it next month and then.
Thanks, Sarah.
Such a good job.
Thank you.